I invented these 1980s arcade air fresheners. They smell like menthol cigarettes, wood paneling, spilt cola, and a gumball machine. You'll find these at conventions, and if you need one right now, you can order them. Link in the description below. And with so many video game conventions and video game stores that you walk into, you are overwhelmed with the selection. There's too many games out there. And you've heard of all the popular ones and everything, but there's so many great games that are just kind of like there. You might see the label, you're just like, I don't know, I'll pass for now. A lot of great games out there. So in this video, I got 10 recommendations, one game across 10 different consoles. You're subscribed already? Perfect, thank you so much. If you're not subscribed, well, you have the option. Starting off with a Sega game on a Nintendo console. That's right, Game Boy Advance featured Choo Choo Rocket, a classic favorite puzzle game on the Dreamcast, now available on your Game Boy Advance, and done very well. If you're not familiar with Choo Choo Rocket, you have these mice that will just kind of walk in the direction that they're facing, and then if they hit a wall, they'll, turn the corner. But you can put these pieces on the ground, these arrows, and then those arrows will dictate where the mice are going, and you have to get them into these rocket launcher things. Sega was so fun during this time. This late 90s Sega, it was just amazing. I just absolutely love it. Yeah, this late 90s, early 2000s Sega, fun, fun, fun. I just love watching them all, just walk single file into this line and, go around all these corners and stuff like that, too. And if you make a mistake, no worries. You can just back up and do it again. Unlimited lives. Every once in a while, there might be, an enemy or an obstacle in the way, too. That's like, well, I can't do it this way, so you will find the right way eventually. Plenty of options here. I don't know. This game is just hypnotizing to me. I absolutely love this game. It's called Choo Choo Rocket. This is on the Dreamcast. I'm showing the one here on the Game Boy Advance. Speaking of Sega, probably my favorite Genesis game is Haunting, starring Poltergeist. Yeah, it was during a time where, everything had to be a cool dude with an attitude, that Bart Simpson type character. And this guy, how cool, you're a ghost, you're dead, and you have to haunt these items in this giant house to scare the family into moving into a different house. You have to keep on scaring them and scaring them. By possessing all these random items that are around each room, wherever the person happens to be. There's a mom, dad, brother and sister, and wherever room happens to be, you can inhabit or inhabit these items here to to make them scared. It's fun to see the creativity of what could happen or how it's going to happen. When eventually they'll get scared enough, so they'll move out. And you have to do that one by one for all 4 members of the family here. Now, if you run out of your ectoplasm, that's what's haunting these items. You'll go into the underworld and you'll get your refill here. And then when you're back at it, you're just, right back to work. Just scaring these people out of the house here. Again, just the creativity alone makes this game worth playing. Super, super fun. I'm a big fan of it. Now, if you're talking games for value, price-wise, this one might be going up in price. I don't even know the current price of it. Is it $50, $60? I don't know. There's 1,000 ways to play 1,000 games. But do check this game out. I think it's a lot of fun. Now, the NES might be my favorite, but I grew up with the Atari 2600, and if you're not into Atari and you're just like, man, there's so many Atari games out there, and to you, most of them are junk, there's a lot of great Atari 2600 games out there, and one of them is this game here called No Escape. I thought it was pretty creative, and it's still a game I want to basically rip off the idea of for a homebrew for myself. I'll say that out loud, because I'm not ashamed. What happens with No Escape is you shoot above you to hit the ceiling tiles and have them drop onto the enemies. And that's how you eliminate them. So, you look at it and you're like, it's a little bit like a Space Invaders or something like that. I don't know. But no, you have to hit the ceiling and drop the tiles, and then those things will eliminate the enemy. You do that until they're all gone, you get all the bonus points for all the tiles you didn't hit, and then the challenge also comes from not just the sporadic movement of some of these enemies later on, but if you hit an enemy, then they multiply. So if you hit an enemy directly, they multiply. You have to eliminate them by dropping these pieces down on top of them. I just thought it was a fun idea, something pretty unique. The game's called No Escape 2600. Yeah, check it out sometime. Well, there's a few Flintstones games on a few different consoles, and this one for Game Boy Color is definitely interesting. You may not have even known this was a thing until I tell you about the Flintstones Burger Time and Bedrock. This game is Burger Time, featuring the Flintstones characters. You play as Fred Flintstone here. In lieu of Pepper, you have a club that you wallop these enemies with. Huge difficulty factor. You move way too slow, the ladders are way too small, so yeah, prepare to not last very long in this game, maybe. You might find a nice groove with how you move and with the enemies and all that. You're gonna have to with a game like this. But yeah, if you're into Burger Time and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't know there was a Burger Time game on Game Boy Advance featuring the Flintstones, well, there is, and you can play it right now. It's just kind of fun to see like what other enemies might pop up and everything. It does not have that Burger Time mechanic where if an enemy is on a piece and you drop it down, it drops down multiple levels. I wish it did that at least, but this one doesn't. It's all good. It's still kind of fun. On the Ball for the Super Nintendo is a game that took me a while to finally play, and when I did, I couldn't put it down. Now, I've seen the game, I saw it for rent, I've heard other people talk about it. I'm like, yeah, but you're just dropping a marble through this Mode 7 maze, and if you're into that bonus stage of the first Sonic the Hedgehog, maybe you'll really like this game. Maybe. But no, you don't even control the marble, you control the stage. The area. You just, with the L and R buttons, left and right, just, rotating it left, rotating it right. Very speed runnable. I remember seeing this game on, at the rental store. And I was like, okay, I get it. Just by looking at the picture, because we didn't have, like, videos back then, I get it. But I was like, okay, yeah, that looks dumb. And then when I finally got around to playing it, I was like, oh, you know what, here it is, I'll play it. I was like, wow, this game is dumb. And then an hour and a half later, when I found myself, I was still playing it, I was like, well, it can't be that dumb. I'm still playing it. And I still feel that way with this game. On the Ball for the Super Nintendo. Don't judge a book by its cover, or don't judge a marble by its Mode 7. I don't know. It's fun. Trust me. I changed my mind. I changed my opinion. This game's awesome. Let's check out an awesome recommendation from my buddy Jay from the Square Pegs channel.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jay here from Square Pegs, and John asked me if I could talk about a game on the PlayStation 2, and I do love the PS2. I actually just did PS2 month back on my channel in September, and I want to tell you about one of my favorite arcade racing games on the console, and that is Sledstorm. That's right, Sledstorm from EA Sports Big. A fantastic, over-the-top snowmobile racing game, so not something you've ever really seen before. I love it. The action is over the top. The design of the game is fantastic. The levels are great. It's got such an awesome signature EA Sports Big sense of style that I can't help but love it. If you haven't played it, it's worth it, and it's dirt cheap. It's a fantastic game. John, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Now, back to you.
I am not kidding when I say this. I've never heard of that game, and it looks awesome. So, that's a game. See, I'm even learning on my own channel. I've never even heard of that game, and it looks completely amazing. I'm looking forward to checking that game out myself. Here's one of my favorites for the NES. It's Rescue the Embassy Mission. Love this game. So many different gameplay values in this game, and each level takes, just like a few minutes. Just a few minutes. You can pick it up and just start going. So you have to rescue the hostages in a matter of a few different styles of gameplay. The first thing you need to do is have your snipers get to their base, get to their area, get to their lookout, whatever that's called. And you do that by, kind of ducking inside doors, jumping in bushes, avoiding these spotlights. If the spotlights get you, they're going to start shooting at you. So you have to either duck and roll or, avoid the bullets if you can. Once you get to where you're going, then it's the next guy's turn. If you happen to get shot along the way, well, the game's still not over. You won't get the best score, but you can still keep playing. But this is just like just an extra thing you can do here. That's how the game starts. Then when you're on the rooftops, you have your ability to either jump in the building or use the person who got to the lookout point. Remember those snipers at the very beginning? So now you can kind of look through the windows, maybe find some extra enemies here, the terrorists. And if you happen to see one in a window, it's either silhouette anyway, you can eliminate them. And that's one less enemy you have to kill when you are inside the building. Very, very cool. Next gameplay style, this one's super quick. You just have to rappel from this thing. You can't just go all the way down because you'll slip through, but just little by little, bit by bit, crash through the window, and then it turns into this style of gameplay. Little maze-looking, shoot the enemies before they get you. You can see your map down in the corner. That'll tell you where the enemies are. Or, in the more difficult areas, it won't. You just have to, trust that you'll find them. Find the hostages just simply by looking at them. You're basically rescuing them. But just don't shoot them. That's all. Don't do that. 3 levels in these buildings. You gotta find all the enemies, find all the hostages, eliminate all the enemies, and then it's game over. And that's it. And then you get judged, or you get scored, on how well you do. Now, this gameplay took me about 2 minutes and 34 seconds. It's exactly 2 minutes and 34 seconds. Can you do it faster? I mean, can you do it more precise, where you don't, get hit by the other enemies and stuff like that? You can keep playing and playing. Rescue the Embassy Mission. Love this game. Still play it today. Here's a unique one for the Sega Master System. This is Fantasy Zone The Maze. Now, Fantasy Zone, classic Sega. Fantasy Zone itself was available on the Master System. It was on the NES through Tengen. It's been on other platforms too, and even, like the newer ones, where they would have like the arcade classics, or what is that called? The Sega Ages collections and stuff like that. But this is Fantasy Zone The Maze. It plays a little bit like Pac-Man, believe it or not. So, taking it all the way back to the old school. It's a Fantasy Zone themed game, but completely different. It's just, it'd be like if they made like a Gradius maze game. Or maybe that's not the best example, but I mean, but it works. It works for Fantasy Zone because Fantasy Zone is this kind of, I mean, it's Fantasy Zone. Bright, vivid colors, great soundtrack. Fantasy Zone: The Maze. Very interesting to see, but, you know, certainly unique for the Sega Master System. Might be worth looking into. Quirk is an all-time favorite puzzle game of mine. It was one of the first Game Boy games I got when I got my Game Boy back in 1989. And just a fun, simple style puzzle game. Really, you just have to move through the turnstiles and, you know, go from one side and go through the stairs to go on to the next stage. There's turnstiles, there's boxes you can push, stuff gets in the way all the time. These are the easy early stages, of course. There are other blocks you can push into these holes that will make it so you can create a path or a bridge to get to where you need to go through these doors. Some stages might have two characters that you can kind of swap between, so you have to, you know, go tandem and, you know, try to go through there too. A lot of variety, a lot of gameplay, a lot of the, like, you know, it starts out easy and you're just like, well, this is impossible. How do I get past this part? Well, there's a little bit of that in this game too, but Quirk, definitely a quirky game, if you will. And this was also the first game I ever played tandem, like with the link cable. My brother's friend also had a Game Boy with Quirk. And it was like, oh, this is cool. This is the future. We can, you know, I'm looking at my own screen, you're looking at your own screen, and it's like a race to the finish line kind of thing. Yeah, super fun. Let's throw in a game for the PlayStation 1. Why not? That's retro enough, right? Silhouette Mirage, one of my absolute favorite PlayStation 1 games. It was a later release game compared to when the PlayStation 1 came out, but man, I love this game. It's one of the games I still just, you know, dream about. Love the character too. The game is from Treasure too, so you know you're getting bright, vivid colors, interesting gameplay, fun mechanics, great animation, and the gimmick behind this one is you're kind of split in half. Like there's like to simplify it, there's a red side and a blue side. Now, if your enemies are also red and you're on the red side, you can shoot them, but you won't kill them. You'll just remove their, what's it called, their soul, their spirit, something like that. Basically, and if they lose enough of that, then they can't shoot back at you. They don't have enough spirit, I guess. There's a word for it. However, if you flip to your blue side and the enemy is red, for instance, then you can actually take damage from them. And it works the other way too. Like, it works like, you know, versus you as well. So that's where the gameplay comes in. So it's not just a run and gun, which, I mean, yes, it totally is a run and gun, but you have to use that element to your advantage as well. So, I mean, maybe the enemy is tough because they keep killing you by shooting at you. Well, maybe you do want to remove their spirit first, and that way you could just have the upper hand on, you know, taking care of business here. Just absolutely love this game. The game's called Silhouette Mirage. This game is the game that taught me how to spell silhouette, which I've had to spell so many times in the past because I use a silhouette portrait when it comes to cutting my my NES labels and stuff. So, thank you, Silhouette Mirage, for teaching me how to spell the word silhouette. And if you dig this style of video, I've done a few of them in the past. Make sure you check out those. I hope you're subscribed, and we'll do another video coming up really soon, so keep an eye on this channel. There's always something new coming up.